How sad am I to say this, but do you remember only a few years ago when going to your local Walmart or GameStop and paying $60 for a game got you a certain guarantee of quality? Nintendo's golden seal issued by necessity because people had stopped buying video games. From 1983 to 1985, a billion-dollar market plummeted to $100 million. A lack of uniformity in pricing, quality, and ubiquitous shovelware were just some of the reasons for the great video game crash of 1983. So, the industry reformed itself to be saved. When I was a kid, I believed, when it came to video games, the best was yet to come. That we hadn't even begun to see the potential of this art form. I hope that this is still the truth, though it looks now, having lived through it, that the late 90s and early 2000s were the end of an era, and we are in a new world where publishers are probing into some of the old minds of their era to see if veins still exist there, rather than pioneer anew. I feel as if, for my nephew, I have to tell him how it was. It started at the box, a thick plastic jacket, sometimes even security straps, a coupon for an upcoming release, a fully realized guide of a few dozen pages with color, pictures, color, box art, the lost art, replaced by temporary placeholders for whatever live event is up next, season infinity. It told you something about the game. You would take chances on a game just by the art. There were more bingo balls still rolling in the tank back then. Games media hadn't blossomed into the report before it's happened generation. Slow news days, so we better be offended. Spawn of the internet. This was a time of print media, and so even our hyperactive generation was slower to the punch. I can only imagine what it's like for my nieces and nephew being raised on YouTube. Click, move on, click, move on. 100 years ago, a 2-hour speech was considered a minimum. A time period when nearly everything was done manually and people knew physical labor as an everyday norm. Still, their willingness to be attentive was supreme. Now, 30 seconds is wasting my time. We have more than ever before, and yet somehow we have less. Only 10 years ago, taking home a AAA game meant a certain guarantee. Stories of passion run aplenty in the printed media. Medal of Honor having veterans come in and help them make the decision so that they really got it right. Call of Duty's developers going to the shooting range and feeling the gun and then recording the audio from the source. People going the extra mile to deliver a full product, taking pride in their work to make a complete experience for those that would experience it, respecting their audience. We are knee-deep in the muddy water undertow of day one patches, early access, and the inevitability that your launch day title is about halfway there and patches within an unspecified time will get it to the finish line eventually someday, maybe never. But not before day one buyers realize, compared to the later buyers, that they were fleeced. Again, the defense is that games are so much more complex, so much more expensive, so much more work. So the budgets have ballooned. If this is so, surely profits have ballooned right alongside the budgets. Never has it been more profitable for the industry, yet it seems they seek more. Large projects like Daggerfall came before this unverified time of struggle. Campaigns were mandatory. There had to be some epic foray into single-player storytelling. Even if it failed, it mattered that it was there. The game was seen as not achieving the price of admission if there wasn't a campaign, if it wasn't fully featured as a video game. There was a near certainty of couch co-op, even if a secondary mode with its own missions. There would be a multiplayer. Even if in those days it wasn't always online matchmaking, you could still sit down with your cousin Larry and your neighbor Tom and piss each other off in Conker's Bad Fur Day or GoldenEye. I play old games, and there are undeniable facts that modern games do in most every case offer more. But a good portion of this is filler, the so-called Ubi world. I believe in art. There is an intangible, some inclination of the artist's sweat that offers itself to the experience, and this is why so many flawed games are beloved. The minimum standard has sank tirelessly down. We got beat down. We resigned. There isn't a video game crash coming because it's officially too big to fail. Everyone's a gamer. So, what in the hell does this have to do with Doom? Because Doom is a big FU to that entirely business-minded design philosophy. It must be, because if games are ever to conquer Roger Ebert's words that they would never be art, then games must be looked at through that lens again. The industry has been doing a fine job of proving Ebert right. Doom somehow manages to offer this visceral power fantasy that accomplishes the binding of old standards, the thrill of those pioneering days in retro gaming, and in the same sweep enter into brand new territory and modernize the FPS. Doom 2016 is one of those entries into the genre that ought to be stamped on the timeline of its history. Why Doom is special is that rather than decide the only way to take the genre to the modern audience is to stuff it with every other genre, that use these hybrid elements as spice, just enough to give it the feel of an overhaul, but outside of some cilantro, a hint of basil, what the gamer gets is a big meaty steak cooked medium, and it's delicious. Fat is marbled, the juice is steamed, the seasoning just right. Let's go, you. This big juicy steak sitting in Walmart's bargain bin for $20 or free on Game Pass comes in a world that has gamers convinced that we should feel bad for the likes of Tencent or EA or Activision because it's hard to make games. Damn right it's hard. It takes rare skill sets, a unique blending of creativity and logic. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. But hey, so was the moon landing. So was pioneering the West. So was building skyscrapers in New York and the Hoover Dam. It's almost as if hard work equals results. Doom took a long time to make, and it shows in the reaping. It's almost as if choosing to do things that are challenging and risky rather than safe and easy are more rewarding. Is this ancient truth lost? Maybe criticism has grown sharper, more refined. I believe expectations are higher than ever, but more difficult. Indie games have become a dime a dozen. The days of 2 kilobytes of memory and mandatory knowledge of soldering are long gone. It goes further than the color guides or the rise of digital distribution over physical. It took away our ownership with the rise of DRM, live service, online connection required. Development became streamlined. Schools produced people like me, groomed to work in the industry, meeting some specific purpose. This isn't directed at the creatives or developers, by the way. It wasn't their doing that created this. It was the publishers who finally were able to cement that we lease games now instead of owning them. Imagine the hubbub if Hollywood announced that Blu-rays would require an online connection from here on out to work. And this is why games like The Witcher 3 succeeding or Doom succeeding are a necessary pushback. And I want to blame the companies for this, but I know that's only half true. When my niece tells me her friends at middle school are stealing their mom's credit cards to rack up hundreds of dollars in V-Buck credit card debt, I know that we're half to blame, if not more. Yes, I want to shake those kids and say, do you realize you spent a down payment on a car? You could have bought health insurance, a mattress, things that house you, feed you, get you well when sick, but that is a ship that is lost at sea. So again, if you're with me, what in the hell does this have to do with Doom? It's that Doom is none of those things. It's the antithesis to those things. It isn't political. It doesn't make a statement on microtransactions. The servers aren't going to go down because there's a green gauntlet. It doesn't try to radically reinvent formulas. It doesn't try to give you the kitchen sink and call it content because it's content for content's sake. Doom comes in and simply kicks ass. In a world of confusion, what exactly does this game do again? What's the end-game content? Does it require an online connection? Is there couch co-op? What genre is this again? There's Doom with a big effing gun that's incinerated a hole in the smog of endless discussion and debate and said, hey, remember? We remember. Remember when we discussed video games and it was simply level design, game design, sound design, gameplay loop, technical fidelity? That was about it. Doom reminds us of the core aspect that this art form demanded, that consumers demanded after the video game crash of 1983, and that's it. This ruffled the feathers of some reviewers so much that they wouldn't play the multiplayer. And we must fast forward to this day where a communist is called Doom Eternal offensive. Well, I find Stalin's murderous rampages offensive, but that doesn't have anything to do with Doom, and that's the point. And the likes of Jessica Price would like to see this game burn, and this art form would burn with it. Doom reminds us in an utterly satisfying way and a simple way what it feels like to just have fun again. Video games are many things, and one of them is escapism. Getting to put the mind at ease, focusing on an alternate world with different problems, solvable problems. In your face, I can do this next step problems. And rather than do the modern shooter where our avatars have become increasingly made of glass or must force an hour's worth of DPS into some stiff and health-bloated boss, or we've got to pay our mandatory bloodletting to allow the server to stay up just one more moment. Doom tells us one thing: rip and tear. Here's the kicker though. Since it's 2018, the conversation seemingly can't help but go there. Everyone is included in the ride, because you are the ride. Authority, like the games of yore, is given solely to the player. Gone are the weekly lockouts we become accustomed to, hourly server maintenance, soft caps, hard caps, caps on caps on caps on caps on caps, the ever-present threat of thought police lockdown because of green armbands. If you're transgender, if you're gay, if you're a white dude, if you're a black girl, if you're a god, love it, Toucan Sam, you are the Doomslayer. Our protagonist is faceless, raceless, genderless. It, the Doomslayer, simply kicks ass, and id Software asks you to be the master of this ass-kickery. We aren't bogged down in bloated features. There isn't a dialogue wheel and multiple endings just because they could. There isn't some experiment in narrative design here. It's as linear as one can get. You are the Doomslayer, kill. When Dr. Hayden asks you to not destroy the output of Argent Energy, a choice doesn't appear. The player isn't asked to have a moral compass because you are on a ride. The Doomslayer can handle the moral dilemmas of the moment. Undoubtedly, people would be disappointed in the ending. Suddenly they were asked to think too, and so they'd prefer the complexity of their character to come through in the game, which is exceedingly difficult to do and why so few games get it right. So instead, wisely methinks, it has Doomslayer rear his anvil shit kickers into the priceless piece of technology and throw a couple more slugs into the shotgun.
We're only temporarily disabling the tower. You need to remove each lens individually. Carefully release the hinges.
Warning. Energy contamination detected.
Destroying the production of Argent Energy isn't necessary.
Something I felt both Gears of War 4 and Doom did excellently was their checkpoint system. Their reassertion of the old mechanics where a player was tasked with memorizing the encounter, knowing the map, gaining the reflexes, having the dexterity to time their choices, and button presses. You'll die. You'll get a little further. You'll die. You'll get a little further. You'll start tearing heads off, cracking jaws, open like King Kong. You'll die. You'll die. You'll die, you'll die, and then you'll live, and you'll love it. Doom manages to mix up its environments just enough by going from the UAC facilities to hell and then back again, whilst mixing in an excellent ambient auto track backed by rock music, which manages to be used just at the right time so as not to get samey and repetitive. Just when the cycle might seem to get repetitive, Doom enters a boss rush stage and swiftly moves to the finish line. The game being just long enough that it felt complete, just short enough to warrant the desire to replay. Every ounce of it earned. No V-Bucks, no weekly lockout, simply your own skill and tenacity put to test at your own pace for you to enjoy, because you bought this game and it's your experience to enjoy. Who knew? I thought these days we only leased games by paying for one of 5 different editions, which are only accessible when the servers are present. But wait, there's more. It's buttery smooth. The frame rate doesn't drop. I mean, it simply doesn't. A room will fill with Mancubi, Hell Knights, Cacodemons, and about 1,000 imps, and yet the game runs the same as if there were nothing there, which is why it's so rewarding. The player feels as if they have full agency over actions, the controls are tight, everything is responsive. The game can be tough, especially at higher difficulties, but it's only you versus the game. Rare are the curses of F this game, that's bull what? And resounding are the oh. Okay, I need to remember the summoners come from the right. Hellraisers above. Have to take those out. On top of the Doom campaign, with its 6 difficulty modes, dozens of collectibles, secrets, storytelling, data pads, there's an arcade mode, also offering 6 difficulty modes for even more replayability, a multiplayer, which I found fun, twitchy, fast-paced, with dedicated servers, that I feel is underappreciated, then topped off with a map editor. A lot of content, a complete package, no bull, then to top it off, it plays excellently. If I had to criticize the game, which I don't, but I feel I've been very gloating so far of Doom, I'd say that the variety is lacking. The game for the first 3 quarters manages to introduce new mechanics and powers with new obstacles and enemies at just the right clip. But the last 2 levels, the Titan level in particular, Doom runs itself a bit thin. Doom effectively becomes a boss rush on the last 3 levels. The only things slowing you down are arena after arena. While levels are linear, there are numerous nooks, crannies, secrets, and flanks in the earlier levels. Horizontal corridors become vertical space spacewalks, and then the elements are combined by putting the player into subway tunnels in the outskirts of machinery. However, once the Doomslayer begins his return trip, the job is now simply, let's get a couple more hours of campaign in here by throwing defense stages at you. Still, thanks to the brisk and fast-paced nature of the campaign, this never becomes a slog. If anything, the last couple levels add the immersion of one very pissed-off Space Marine wanting to get his day's work done. Here's the end of your shift in Doom. Going into arenas with a tactical power-up centrally located and barraged with waves of enemies. There remains the satisfaction in learning the spawns, making the right moves, and playing an encounter well, but by the third or fourth wave, the player has been there, done that. I can only imagine doing it on Ultra Nightmare, where in true Doom or Quake fashion, it is unapologetic. Hard mode is hard mode, you asked for it. The multiplayer doesn't appear massive, but most nights I had no problem queuing into lobbies. Doom runs on dedicated servers and is a total blast from the past. Unlike the campaign and arcade that manages the home run touchdown combo of both updating and re-envisioning, multiplayer sticks to the formula. A formula that isn't tired, and why Doom's multiplayer didn't see much love is beyond me. It's twitchy. Accuracy is king, and good decision making leads to big plays. It's unforgiving, and this, like so many elements of Doom, is a call back to a different time, where PSN must protect the children and Nintendo has friend codes. This is mom's basement at 2 a.m. with that one kid from high school who's got a baby on the way and will be in jail a week after graduating, and about every other kid in your class from the valedictorian to the football star. Yes, people used to have to pack up their rigs or consoles and go across physical space with other physical people from their town, and people would sit in a tiny bedroom that electronics had heated into a boiler, and the smelly kid combined with the farts and sole diet of Monster and Doritos would cause an ungodly stench.
I can't hear you! Maybe you should hit up Bowlby and Equalize again! I'm not church, I'm not keeping with you!
Doom opened the door to this callback. Before algorithms made the win rate 50%, skill-based matchmaking, endless tinkering and safety measures, bubble-wrapped the human element in chains, never to be heard from again. Thank God that 12-year-old Timmy in his fabulous McMansion, manicured nails, full ride to the state college guaranteed, never has to deal with someone wanting to bang his mom ever again.
Darth Lord just got me a headshot, Mom. Did you see that? He just killed me. Come on, love. He just killed me. Come on. Mom, can you stop?
It's only too bad that in his pocket is more pornography than any generation preceding him. So whereas there is a fun multiplayer mode with loads to do and unlock, a map editor with just as much to do and unlock, it's somewhat limited by how many people are currently playing the game. There is the rare, and I mean rare, bug, typically to do with collision detection. One time I rode a mod robot across the map. A couple times I fell through the floor. So outside a slight over-reliance on defense mechanics, I really have nothing else to criticize on Doom. Doom makes a statement by not making a statement. An unapologetic reboot, remaster, sequel, all in one, that tasks the player like the days of yore with the challenge of reflex, of memory, of quickness, and of adaptability to ever more dangerous encounters. A technical marvel which refuses to drop a frame. Have the player's bullets defined by some algorithm like Bloom, learnable in 5 minutes and masterable up to the point where a player can run Ultra Nightmare with a pistol. You can go to Walmart, you can buy the game for $20, or get it on Microsoft's Game Pass right now and feel like it's the early 2000s again, but better yet, remember that it's 2018, and the tried and true formula that gave consumers their confidence in video games again never got old. It wasn't worn out. It wasn't broken. Doom gets a 3 out of 3.